Function notation is our next big idea, and first we want to talk about, well, what exactly is function notation? It's basically just another way to express outputs. So function notation is a way, again, to express what an output value is, or it's just another way to represent y. You're usually going to see something, for example, like this. We're going to say this f and then parentheses x. You read this as f of x. And what this states is f is the name of the function, and x is your input value, and then f of x is what's the output value. And that f can be anything. You can call it g of x, h of x. You can name multiple functions. Probably wouldn't go x of x, but you want to use a different letter. But f is typically the one you'll see, f for function, but again, that f could be any other letter, like a of x, b of x, c of x. What's important is f is the name of the function, x is what we're inputting, and the entire thing f of x is just another way to say y, and that's your output value. So if you look at the first example, I want to evaluate f of x equals 2x minus 7, when x equals 4 and x equals negative 4. So this is basically just saying plug in x equals 4, and then plug in x equals negative 4. So it's basically two problems in one. So to do the evaluation, I'm going to plug in 4 for x. So I'm going to find basically what is f of 4. So what is the function when x equals 4? So I'm going to put a 4 in there, and then a 4 where the x is. Now, you're never going to deal with this f of 4. That's basically the name. We don't divide by 4 or anything. We just leave that alone. All right, so we're not going to touch that. And all we're going to do is do our PEMDAS and finish evaluating. So multiply first, and then subtract. So we're going to say f of 4 equals 1, which basically means the function of x, when x is 4, is 1. So if my input value is 4, my output is 1. That's all that is, okay? Then we're going to go ahead and do part 2. And now we're going to do f of negative 4. And again, I'm just using this notation to say I want to figure out what is the output when x is specifically negative 4, okay? And then I'm not going to bother with the f and the negative 4. That's just going to stay the way it is. So I'm going to plug in negative 4 here on the right, and then actually do the computation. So negative 28, oh, sorry, not 28. Did 4 times 7 on accident there. So negative 8 minus 7 is going to be negative 15. So we're going to say f of negative 4 equals negative 15, which once again means for the input negative 4, my output is negative 15. Okay, so go ahead and try B. Again, don't let the f of whatever the f of t here freak you out. We're going to look at, again, just plugging in values. So we're going to go ahead and try B. So here t is the number of hours, so it doesn't always have to be x, but this is going to be our input because it's in the parentheses. And then our outside temperature after 10 a.m., right? So it's t hours after 10 a.m. Okay, so f of t is our outputs, the outside temperature. This is our output. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to explain the meaning. So now that we know how to evaluate the function, let's talk about what the function actually means. And most of our functions are going to have some context to it. So you might have a word problem, or we might be looking at specifically calculating profits and stuff like that. So let's be able to interpret what functions mean. So again, we want to think, what did I plug in as my input value? So this means t equals 0, okay? And remember, the output is the outside temperature. So f of t, this is going to be f of t, which is my output, right? Input and output. So my input was hours, so we're looking at 0 hours, and then 75 is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Now interpret that. That's 0 hours after what? After midnight, after 12, after I ate lunch, right? What does that mean? So that means At exactly 10 a.m., because we're 0 hours after 10 a.m., the outside temperature is 75. So that's what we want to write down. Okay? And that's what I want you to do when you're interpreting. I want you to give me a little sentence telling me exactly what is going on. So let's try B here. So again, looking at my input value, which is next to the F, so this means T is 3, and N is my output, right? F of T equals N. Let's interpret that. So that means 3 hours after 10 a.m., so that would be 10, 11, 12, 1 p.m., it is N degrees Fahrenheit outside. So it's okay to not know it. We'll just use N. Use what you're given. If you can't solve for it, it's okay. So at 1 p.m., it is N degrees Fahrenheit outside. Okay? And then finally looking at C, F of 1 is greater than F of 8. So we don't actually know the temperature this time, but we know, again, a comparison. So interpret exactly what you're seeing. So here, where T equals 1, we know that temperature is going to be greater than when T equals 8. So 1 hour after 10 is 11 a.m. 8 hours after 10 would be what? 6 p.m. So this is, again, 11 a.m. is going to be greater than 6 p.m. So write that out as a sentence. The temperature outside is warmer or higher at 11 a.m. than it is at 6 p.m. Right? And that's all it tells me. I don't know that it's 25 degrees Fahrenheit versus 3 degrees Fahrenheit or any of that, but I do know at 11 a.m. it's going to be hotter. It's going to be warmer. It's going to be a greater number. Okay? So 2 things for you guys to try for that first you try. Go for it. So number 1, same deal, plug in, but I want you to do 3 things, sorry, -4, 0, and 3. Make sure you check that. And then number 2, think about how you can explain, again, the outside temperature after 9 a.m. So read that carefully. So go ahead and try that out. All right, so check your work. One thing I want you to make sure you see in part B of You Try 1 is that negative is basically in front of the x is a -1 times x minus 1. So you want to make sure you keep that negative outside. So when I plug in that -4, that becomes the -1 times -4, which is +3 minus 1, which is how, +4 minus 1, which is how I got 3. So be careful with that. And then with number 2, A, B, and C, doesn't matter how you word it, just make sure you have that material there. Okay? Come back to class with questions. We're going to finish this off together with graphing and then looking at an application.